Hey there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. It's a Saturday night. The Hawks just won both halves of a back-to-back, and I'm here with Glenn and Tyler, uh, banging out a new pod. I think it's only been, what, 2, 3 days since the last one, but it's a lot going on, so as good a time as any. And I want to start by saying that I'm very, very thankful, not just in November, but now in February too, because the Hawks did not waive Clint Capella and subvert their own draft pick by letting the Lakers get him in the aftermath of the rejected trade for Mark Williams, rescinded trade. Uh,
Wait, what?
Mark Williams was traded from the Hornets to the Lakers, and the
Yeah.
Lakers said that the Hornets did not fulfill their obligations, so the trade's been rescinded. Which
Oh,
to me sounds like it sounds like a failed physical or something
oh
like
yeah.
that.
He obviously failed his physical.
Right,
They
because he's
they
the only part going to Los Angeles,
yeah.
and now they don't have a center. And I'm glad that Clint Capella didn't become the Lakers center that ruined the value of the Hawks' own draft pick.
That's unfortunate because I'm pretty sure the Hawks would have tried to get a I mean, they would have tried to get a first round pick from the Lakers there. I had no idea about this. Um, Yikes. That's well, good on the Hornets for trying at least, but that's kind of bad business to knowingly try to trade somebody with an obvious, you know, if you're failing, that's not good. Like that's like below Michael Porter Jr. levels of. And if you don't know, Michael Porter Jr. had severe back problems to start his career. He basically didn't play the first 2 seasons of his career, and he was, and the the Nuggets have a hard time trying to upgrade from him just because of his contract and his injury risks due to those physicals that are probably still showing pretty bad. So like that's tough. That's a tough break for the Lakers, but seems like it doesn't matter because they keep winning. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
we shall see.
Yeah,
Uh,
but there's some playoff matchups that are going to be tough for them. Like,
Oh,
how do they
yeah.
deal with Jokic if they get matched up with Denver? How do they deal with Jokic? You know, so
Well, they were dead with or without Mark Williams in that matchup, but
yeah.
now it's even worse. Jackson Hayes, step up. Uh,
Shared Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Capello could definitely help them though, but unfortunately, I guess Kevin, I think you had the right of it though on maybe either promising or doing something with Larry Nance just being guaranteed rotation minutes post trade deadline because you know nobody asked, but Capello was with the team, he was just inactive, so uh, that's an interesting dynamic on there. I'm not, I don't have any knowledge of the situation, but it could legitimately be the Hawks want to go in a different direction at the center position. The only thing that's been leaking out is that I know the Hawks are trying to get Larry Nance to sign a contract extension, but I don't have anything else other than that. It is interesting.
yeah, the one question I don't think I asked a whole lot of questions yesterday, but the one question I think I did ask is, I asked Landry about Onyeka becoming a starter a couple of weeks ago. And he said, pretty flatly, we were looking for, different kind of skill set at the center position. So, I think there's a certain style of play that they're trying to get to with more emphasis on, on defense at the, you know,
Forward and
wing
wing
and forward positions and,
guard positions.
more of a hub out of their center. And
Yeah.
that definitely fits Nance more than Capella at this point. So we'll see.
Sure.
Um, man, I know we potted the other day and you two generally liked the trades and I was kind of hesitant and even with all of that said, like as you look at sort of game one of them and the new players in action, I mean they haven't even had a practice yet, so it's hard to make any uh strong or bold conclusions, I think, but just seeing what was sort of thrown out there against a Wizards team that isn't all that great, like do you have any takeaways that you really want to take note of, thinking that they might be some kind of long-term trend?
For me, like the Wizards were the perfect team to roll out the new guys, for the first game. So schedule, a little bit of being fortunate on how the schedule kind of lined up that way. So that helps. It's kind of funny. You watch my observations. I watched Terrence Mann play on offense tonight. It took him a little while. He looked like a guy who had been standing in the corner, weak side corner a lot, watching James Harden operate. And Quinn, as we know, that's not what the Hawks are doing. That is not what the Hawks are doing. By like the third quarter, he was cutting and moving and kind of getting into back screening on the weak
Yep.
side, split
Yep.
cuts, stuff like that. So he picked it up. And then Niang just run into open spots just run into open spots the whole game, which is they haven't had anybody at that position that can do that. So that was helpful, there as well. And then Levert was kind of the same thing. Cleveland plays a lot of drop. I think people would be surprised how much they will get their bigs to the level sometimes, especially when Allen is off the court. With Mobley, they'll get him up to the level. But it's just a different Hawks switch way more than the Cavs do, the Clippers do, a lot more. And then the way they defend ball screens, especially guard or guard wing ball screens, is a different technique they use to defend those ball screens. And it took Levert a little while to kind of get used to the way they were doing that too. But I thought this was a nice matchup, just to kind of roll those guys out and get a one game of run and kind of feed in. Like obviously we'll go back and look at video and tighten things up and acclimate and things like that. But glad it wasn't, a really, really strong team. Because that would have been a tougher thing for Quinn to navigate, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to take too much away because I thought it was pretty obvious, especially in the first half. They were really disorganized on both ends of the floor, and like they were having a hard time getting back in transition. They were in the wrong spots. That was leading to runouts for the Wizards. But overall, like, I mean, what is obvious is just the talent upgrade on what the Hawks were doing with their bench before. Like, it's kind of. I think that was my biggest takeaway. Is like Levert. Karis LeVert is just a better basketball player than Keaton Wallace, and Terrence Mann is just a better basketball player than Garrison Matthews. And you know, Niang's in his own separate category because he's like a true power forward, something they haven't had since more or less Jalen went out. Unless they're going to play Mo Gueye, we'll talk about Mo later, Mo and Barlow later. But like uh, Niang's kind of a true power forward, and so like it's pretty obvious, his size, really his like smarts on defense can kind of mask some of his athletic deficiencies. He has the mass to kind of navigate that as well, and the IQ to use that mass to the best of his abilities on the defensive side of the floor. But offensively, like Niang, Trey Young's like, thank you, thank you. I can, it's like, what if we ran the stuff with DeAndre Hunter but with a better shooter, George. And so that they kind of just we're running pick and pop plays with Niang. Niang's flat, dive into the open spot on the floor. He's got has a quick trigger. So like if you leave him, he will shoot it and he'll bury it. So like Niang's gonna put up some career numbers if he's playing this many minutes next to Trey Young, because Trey's just gonna feed him opportunities to score the ball. So like that's probably the biggest takeaway you can take away from everything else. Like because Levert unfortunately got in foul trouble, so it's hard to see the breadth of his game. But I do like his athleticism on the perimeter defensively, and I've seen him play good basketball on the offensive side of and Terrence Mann and Vik Rachel were doing some magical stuff in that second half. So like that's what you want to see. You want to see these guys push the ball to the floor, create advantageous situations for themselves when Trey's not in the game to try to juice their offense that way. Like that's get some easy shots. So like it was a good game overall from I thought all three of those guys, and they kind of all showed their strengths in a big way.
You literally said a sentence that I was getting ready to say verbatim when you said that Karis LeVert's just a better basketball player than Keaton Wallace. Like I had that one like queued up.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's not a shot on Keaton.
no, it's not.
And Keaton's the exact type of player you want as your deep bench guy, but the Hawks were asking the Hawks were just elevating him and Garrison Matthews well too high up on the rotation role. Like those are guys you want to spot duty if there's injuries, you're comfortable with them playing, but you don't want them going out there every night 15, 18 minutes plus. Like that's just they have too many holes in their game that can be exploited by us the good teams in this league.
And
It's
Niang
also
had the
just
obvious advantage in this one of he's played for Quinn before. He was playing with the starters. It was always going to be in this game just a lot easier for him to blend and mesh than it was for Levert and Mann. Like that was a much bigger ask of those two coming off the bench. Playing with each other, playing without Trey. Like that was clearly a much bigger ask. So like with those two especially, like I'm willing to just, shelve what we really see and, give it a few games before you make any bold sweeping statements there. But, you know,
Niang's just such an obvious fit. Like we've literally seen this archetype excel next to Trey Young. So like it's not shocking he had a really good game tonight.
if Clint does end up playing, a lot in the near future, like to me, I think like I don't even know who's going to be in the rotation or out of it, but like I would think that Niang with Capella might be, one sort of look where you play like Gay with a Kongwu or Barlow with a Kongwu. Like I, I don't think that they want to play like Niang with Nance as much. I think that might be get them into a little bit of trouble defensively. But it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know how they want to kind of match up their bigs if who they play at center changes.
I'm not so like the thing about Capella and Niang that scares me is that that's really slow, right? And at the end of the day, I feel like that'd be a redux of what the Hawks, because the Hawks got completely went away from Capella Gallinari. I don't know if fans remember this. Back when Gallo was on the team, like after that first year, basically Gallinari was tethered to the hip with the Congo. Like uh uh the Hawks didn't even try anymore to throw Capella and Gallinari on the floor together because they were just too slow. And I fear you're running that back. And I think that's the issue with potentially Capella might just be out the rotation. Like you know, I can see this being a real scenario primarily because I think the Hawks want more. They want more ball security and ball security from their center position. Like they want to trust that guy to make a play with the ball in their hands in ways that Capella just cannot do. It's not his game. And also, like there's just so many types of players you can't play next to Capella. Like I can't see the Hawks throwing Mo Gueye out there with Capella, but you could throw Mo Gueye out there with Larry Nance. You could throw Mo Gueye out there with
I
Onyeka
mean,
Okongwu. You can,
they
in
were
fact,
phenomenal together. Like that looked like the most natural pairing ever,
natural
those
pairing,
two.
yes. And in fact, at this, you could throw Mo Gueye out there with the George Niang, depending on what the other team has out there. Depending on how you want to set up your defensive rotation or Barlow as well. So Barlow's I think he has real defensive concerns that maybe we can get into a bit, but like at least at the power forward position. But like I just think with Capella, not to say Capella's not a good player, but for how the Hawks want to play, they have to change so much to make him a viable option on this team when they're trying to really get Dyson going offensively. They want to rehab Terrence Mann. Like the trade the Hawks made with Mann for Bogdanovich was a bet that Terrence Mann is a good basketball and that he was in a bad spot with the Clippers, and they feel like in the Hawks system, playing in a 5-out scheme where he's asked to do more with the ball in his hand, he can really show his value. So like he's gonna have a hard time doing that with somebody like Capella, who I mean, if it's not Trey and Capella, pick and rolls, I don't know who else can feed Capella in a way to make him viable on the offensive end. Not to say that he should like just be completely out of the rotation for the foreseeable future, but I think it's going to be more matchup dependent with Clint, where it's like, okay, we're going up against a team, we really need his size and rebounding.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
that's
For
how
me,
they.
yeah. For me, I do think they're going to lean into a Kongu and Nance. It's going to be interesting to see if some games where they're struggling to rebound, if they might go to Clint and
Yes,
like Tyler said, matchup based. But when you were running Bogey and Garrison Matthews on the second unit, you can't play those and play Nance. You can't, right? With Levert and Mann on the second unit, right? And
mm,
you
Yep.
when you have now Dyson, Ricochet, Mann, Levert. I want to throw Veet in there too. He's not defending like those other guys right now. They need better point attack defense from Veet, like
yes,
he
yes, they
showed
do.
last year or something. But he's the fifth guy now. That's a pretty good spot for him, in that kind of defensive wing pecking order. And I feel like what the trades did was allow them to lean into the offensive skill set of Okongwu and Nance because they're not running Bogey out there for long stretches with the second, and they're not running Garrison Matthews out there. So I think if as we've watched this season, needle moving on defense, offense just couldn't get like any consistency. And now I think that they have more two-way lineup configurations they can kind of manage throughout the game. And a lot of that is these defensive wings, defensive point attack guys allowing them to protect Nance when he's at center, for example, and Okongwu too, to a degree, just because he still is a little bit smaller than your traditional center. So I think they're leaning way into offensive skill at center the rest of the way, apart from matchups that might dictate really strong rim protection and rebounding. But the feels like that's going to be the exception the rest of the way.
I mean, just anecdotal evidence. Like these last two games, I feel like has been some of Nance's best work on the defensive side of the floor. Like he's pointing out coverages, he's in the right spot, like, and he's not being put in those bad situations when he was next to Garrison Matthews and Bogdanovich. And oh yeah, I'm just seeing this news. Yeah, failed physical for Mark Williams. Sorry, but no, but like I just think I really think this is they want to go forward with Larry Nance as somebody who's a consistent member of this rotation, along with Onyeka Okongwu, who uh I mean he's been playing some great basketball though. Against the Wizards, I thought he was kind of lacking, but
Yeah, the
second
last
night of back second night of back to back centers, like I it happens. So I'm gonna give him a pass there, but I thought he was really good previous game, so I can cut him some slack here.
I have a question that I carry want to carry over from the last pod. We didn't get to it. Is there anything about the trades that the Hawks did at the deadline that make you think that they have an opinion one way or the other on Kobe Buffkin's future?
For me, I feel like he has to be sort of a contingency that he has to show he can stay on the court. All those things. I think it would be silly next year just to pencil him right into the backup point guard spot. I think it's fine if they have a guy who's like a veteran that could play if Kobe can't play. Guy who doesn't have to play all the time. That kind of situation. But I feel like the first third of this season, I mean, and Kobe had like 3 weeks where he played really well before he got hurt. Like he had 3 or 4 weeks where he was rough in the beginning, like as he came back from the injury. And unfortunately for him, he had 3 weeks or so where he was really kind of starting to click a little bit, and then he got hurt. But he's one of those guys, like he missed a lot of time in year one, missed a lot of time in year two. How do you tell yourself as an organization we can bank on 70 games from him next year until you see him actually do that for you? And so I feel like they need to. I know that they love Kobe, and I'm a fan of his potential, I would say. But as an organization, you've got to have another alternative ready to go next year in case he runs into another situation where he misses extended time. That's my view.
I don't think it's anything for future seasons, these trades. I just think they had to fill the hole that's been made since Kobe got out. Like the second Kobe got hurt, ball like shot creators became a serious problem for this team. Like it became like, okay, how are we going to generate, you know, shots anywhere on the floor with when Trey's out the game? And so like I don't think this is an indictment anything on Kobe. I just think it's the reality, like Glenn said, like he hasn't played, and uh that's kind of it. You know, I, I'm I'm still high on Kobe. I think I just think he's had a bad break to start his career, but I can't I don't want to say like he's not in their future plans, but I will say he's not a foundational piece as of right now, if that makes sense. Like he's not somebody who the Hawks are overly concerned about either drafting a player over him or signing somebody over him. Uh, but I do think like they'll pick up his rookie option again, because they like the talent. And I just think it's one of those things where it's like, if he can stay healthy, he'll have opportunities to play. Like at the end of the day, like, and so I do think he'll get his time, but I don't think these trades necessarily say anything about him, at least right
Yeah, I think I agree with what you two said, so there's no need to belabor that point. Is there anything else? Any lingering things that you want to talk about? It seems like we were got cut short uh maybe only like halfway through in the last pod because there were so many things to talk about.
Yeah. I think people are going to be upset if we don't talk about the game Mo Gueye had versus the Bucks.
now.
So,
Absolutely.
Tyler, you wanna tell us what you saw?
I mean, it was a good matchup for Mo. Uh, it was a limited, no Giannis to really take advantage of maybe some of the mistakes that Mo Gueye was making on both sides of the floor. So that helped. And also, like the Bucks are a very slow, especially without Giannis, they're a pretty slow and unathletic team. So it was a very good. So I wanna preface what I'm saying about Mo Gueye that it was a great matchup. That said, like I I've said this since summer league, and I continue to echo this point. I've always been impressed by his defense. Like his defense he is showing me stuff defensively throughout. He does it in G League, and he's done it on the NBA floor. Um, you can't teach this level of combination of size and athleticism. Like you just can't. And and I posted about this on Blue Sky and Twitter uh a little bit that Mo Gay's the type of rotational player that turns your team into a contender, where he's your Tari Eason type off the bench, havoc creator on the defensive side of the floor, play finisher on offense, and like I mean those blocks and steals lead to points, transition points and opportunities. Now all of a sudden you go from down 5 to up 15, just from a couple of like wild plays that somebody that gifted physically can make. So I'm hoping Quinn finds like Quinn just plays them because they need this defensive upside, especially like I think it would be a mistake to push Niang too far, like to just have him be like a 30 plus minute per game starter. Like I think you want to manage Niang a little bit just so that smarter teams don't take advantage of him athletically. Like there's ways to orient your rotation so that you can limit that because ultimately Niang's going to be closing all your games. That's understandable. But like before that, you're going to want to. I think it's a good opportunity to get Mo out there to really generate some havoc and bring that rim protection that you, quite frankly, you need from your forwards. Like you need your forwards to be able to do stuff like that. So, I mean, he was incredible. He has a lot of wild blocks. Like, and I'm not happy for him because I mean, he's clearly put in the work physically to get to where he is right now. Like compared to where he was even last year.
What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I'll continue to say like I think there was just like a dip in his athleticism due to injury. If you go back to the early College Park games this season, like that kind of pop wasn't there. Like I think he has real athletic gifts, and I think he's a good defender regardless with good defensive instincts. But like the athleticism and the pop is coming now too. And I think he had some of that last season, intermittently in some of his College Park stints. So I think they're going to be really careful, trying to, manage his health. Like today, obviously, they weren't going to try to push him into playing in a third straight day, but he's a really special defender. Like you know, every time this season that he has played, like the defense has been great. Like I don't think the Hawks have had a bad defensive game in a game that he played like rotation minutes. You know, I think his defensive rating when he's been on this season is like 90 something. Like they're just when they play with two rim protectors, they really seal things up and they get enough when he plays with somebody like Nance, they get enough offensive creation. The ball gets to the right spots if Nance gets to the middle of the floor, if he's dealing with things from the elbow like that, the ball gets to the right spots. And Gueye is a play like Tyler said, he's a play finisher on offense. He can finish at the rim, he can finish with a jump shot. And so it's a really good combination. And I don't know. I'm just a big fan of the too big look when you can get away with it. And so I just want to see a whole lot more. It just seems like the Hawks have
It
struggled at
makes
times. It's funny because you've got Niang coming in at the same time, and it's really refreshing to see what he can bring. I'm glad that the Hawks are getting to these two extremes with their power forwards because um, it's a really special thing to see, I think.
it makes your life easier, you know.
It
It
just
just,
does.
you play somebody who's near 7 feet tall and can defend everywhere on the floor and make all these havoc creating plays, and you're playing bigger, and all of a sudden teams just aren't taking advantage of it. Y- uh, so like it's and something I also want to point out, he's playing a lot more under control. Uh, and I think that might have something to do with more confidence in his body physically. But like he's not falling all over the place anymore. Like he's playing a more, it's like controlled aggression compared to even where he was to start in the preseason, where he was kind of still like just flying all over the place and falling over and falling on his back, hurting himself. Like it just feels like he's like, I want to honestly say he's knocked it back like maybe 5% or 10% um from a effort level, where he's like more like it's more important that I stay solid than I get there, if that makes sense.
And like with stuff like he had that one like really big block on Brook Lopez, like that was a great play and it was athletic, but a lot of that was he read that play so fast. He was moving as soon like when the ball was still on the passer's fingertips, he was coming to the middle to get there. And instead of trying to get there, in a side to side, he was already in place going straight up because he read it fast enough, which I
Yeah.
think is another thing that's starting to come with him.
Yeah, and to me, like as a power forward, there's a little bit of Dyson has back in the '80s you'd hear this term like range like that worked for me, and I haven't heard it forever. I use it sometimes. People look at me like I'm funny, but defensive range, like the amount of floor you can impact, right? Dyson is
Yeah.
incredible at that, right? Mo has that as a power forward, right? His ability to get from the weak side corner all the way to the nail, all the way to the rim, back out there quickly is special, and his instincts are great,
Right. Like the
and
gold
I thought it
standard
was
is Robert Williams, right? You mentioned him.
exactly,
Like he
exactly.
he has incredible range, and Mo's not at that level, but like you're only
Yep,
going down like one tier going from Robert Williams to Mo Gueye.
totally. And the other thing that allowed him to stay on the floor that I talked about is in previous games he was too often in the wrong place on offense. The ball would hit his hands, not making the 0.5. He was a lot cleaner on offense in this game. That allowed Quinn to stick with him, which was really impactful. And it's gonna be interesting to see the rest of the way if they kind of split the backup minutes between Dom and Gay. I mean, Dom is ahead offensively. Gay is way more impactful defensively, and that helps with Okongwu and Nance, especially Nance. Even more so a little bit. Um, but I mean, I I'd love to watch him play a lot of basketball for the rest of the way, for the Hawks. And I think it's a great way to just supplement having most leaning towards offensive skill at the center position. He's a guy who can give you that backline support, that weak side rim protection, that you know impacting a lot of the defensive half court, the floor in the defensive half court is super helpful. And I'm excited to watch him play maybe a good bit the rest of the way.
It's funny because I agree with you. Like when you say Mo is way ahead on defense, I support that 100%. And then like at the same time, like having watched Barlow in the G League early this season, like the things that he's done on defense in the last week, I wouldn't have expected that. Like
Yeah,
he's actually gotten better defensively. I think he's made real progress on that end compared to where he was. So like Gay is going to be still be way ahead on defense, but it's if Quinn is trying to pick who to play, like he's at least getting better enough on defense that when you look at the overall play, it's a little bit of a competitive race.
yeah, yeah. And Barlow's been competing. I mean, he's been, even if he
Yeah,
doesn't have the
yes.
even if he doesn't have the tools that Gay has, he competes and he's connected and he's invested and things
Yeah,
like
I just
that. And
think like his
that
overall
helps.
positioning is better too. Like in some of the
Yeah,
G League
agreed.
games, he wasn't reading that quickly. He wasn't, like you said, the competitiveness is better, but I just think it's a little bit of everything too. Not just the competitiveness, but also just sort of awareness of situation where he's supposed to be and the things that he's supposed to be doing as sort of the five in the paint. Like he didn't do all that much of it in College Park to start the season. So I think he's made real steps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I, and I, and I if I last thing for Tyler, and I want to. It's so great they have Tony Bradley in College Park. What a great experienced guy for those guys to learn from. And I think sometimes we forget it's a little thing like that in your organization that has a bigger impact than people realize. Tony Bradley is a freaking professional, experienced guy who knows how it all works, and that has helped a guy like Don Barlow and helped a guy like Mo Gueye. And it's so easy for us to not pay attention to that, especially for fans that don't get to watch College Park play or don't follow them so closely and things like that. That's a big deal to me.
yeah. I was just and just playing in general, like and it goes towards why was Mo getting, like people ask why was Mo in the G League for for so long if he have a game like he did against the Bucks, where but like the thing was the Hawks, like he just needed more seasoning, and so they weren't going to rush him because they could afford not to when they had Jalen. Now they don't have Jalen Johnson, they've got to fill that power forward role however they can. And like what the thing that separates Mo defensively from Barlow really to me is just he's just a more physically gifted. Like he just has the tools to be like better. Combined with he's like an elite athlete. Whereas I think Barlow's a pretty good one for his position. But like Gay like I mean we'll see if he continues to be in the rotation. But like it's hard not to be excited about what Gay could be long term.
And just to add one thing, when Glenn was saying, what a luxury it is to have Tony Bradley, like I've thought of that this season more in terms of what he does for Jurisic because like if you look at College Park's rotation when they had a lot of these players there, like they would start Gay and they would start Barlow as their bigs, oftentimes together. And it was Jurisic coming off the bench with Tony Bradley. And, Tony Bradley, for somebody who's trying to hone your pick and roll skills, that's a really valuable pick and roll tool to have. Like Jurisic is learning a lot playing pick and roll with Tony Bradley. So I concur with Glenn's assessment of Tony Bradley being a luxury, but I think it's a really big luxury for Jurisic as he tries to, navigate his way, through his minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, what the structure the Hawks have that crosses into their G League is something they weren't doing 3 years ago, right? I mean,
Nope.
they had a completely different roster every year, and until a couple of years ago, and that really matters. That stability and that continuity really matters, and it's showing up. That's why Mo Gueye can play for the get dropped in and play for the Hawks now. Where if you were just to have your G League team completely disconnected from your NBA team, it doesn't work. So, I that's a huge part of the organizational infrastructure to build up from here that I think is underappreciated sometimes.
All right. Glenn, I know that you've been fielding questions, I think on Twitter or Blue Sky, wherever you've been getting them from. Do you have any more questions that you want to answer from our listeners?
Yeah, so we pretty just do two quickly. One is, what do we expect the rest of the way? Are the Hawks going to avoid the play in? What's our expectations the rest of the way for this team in this form?
I'd need a larger sample. I got to see how these guys play together, but I do see the upside. I do see the upside with the team. Whereas before, I thought they were player like they needed more bodies, and now they have. I got to see how they gel together before I can say.
Kevin?
I mean, I wasn't really a big proponent of these trades necessarily, but I do think that they make the Hawks better for this season. Um, but like Tyler said, I want to see more, but I think that they're like a 7-8 team. I think, I think they've made a move that's going to get them out of the funk, but they lost 8 in a row. Like I don't think they're going to be that kind of team the rest of the way. Um, but I think that they're setting themselves up to, you know, get this postseason not necessarily run because it could be one playing game and you're done, but just having something to play for here is going to be a good experience for Rita Shea and Daniels and company. And so, they want to be competitive and have something to play for. And I think that they will. I think this is going to be a race to the end for this 6, 7, 8, and they could get six, but I think they're somewhere in 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. 30 games left, I think, after tonight, if I'm doing my math right.
Yeah, and the schedule gets
That,
better. Like they've just
yeah,
had an awful stretch on the road. I think they have, in the final 27 games, I think they have six more at home than they do on the road.
yeah,
The little road games they do is like a little puddle jump to Charlotte. There's no big like road trip, so they're
yeah,
going to have a very friendly like travel schedule once they get back from this All-Star break.
yeah. Next six are big. Magic, Knicks, Magic, Pistons, Heat, Heat. Those are three of those teams they're chasing right ahead of them. So let's check back in 6 games and see if we have a more informed answer at that point.
All right. Good night, Bob.
Good,
Good night,
Bob.
Bob.